What if pivoting is actually the bravest move that you can make? Not a step backwards, not a sign that you've messed up, but a declaration to yourself that your growth is more important than your comfort. See, we've all been taught that quitting means failure, but there's a huge difference between giving up and letting go of what no longer fits. Pivoting doesn't mean you failed, it means you're evolving. But why does it feel so scary? Let's take some time and unpack that together. Because I can tell you, I've been having a lot of conversations lately with students and clients and friends and family and heck, strangers in the grocery store. And I keep hearing this one singular word: shift. People are shifting how the way they work, who they love, what they believe in. Technology is changing jobs, or how about this? Just the threat of technology changing jobs is having people up in arms. We hear about AI altering industries. We know social pressure is causing people to reevaluate what they stand for. And, the world just feels different. And because of all of this, a lot of people are waking up to the fact that what used to work doesn't work anymore. That old playbook doesn't fit this new season. So, what do you do when the ground underneath your feet feels like it's shifting? That's when you pivot. Not reactively, but with purpose. Not out of panic and angst, but out of wisdom. Not because you failed, but because you've grown. Well, welcome back, guys. I'm Dr. Emmanuel George III, and around here you could just call me Dr. EG3. To this podcast, this space where we keep it real. We talk about growth, change, faith, performance, and purpose. It's not about pretending that we have it all figured out, because heck, I know I don't, but it's about becoming. And today we're talking about a word that makes a lot of high performers squirm a little bit, and it's this idea of pivoting. Because pivoting can feel like quitting, like you're abandoning the plan, like you've wasted time, energy, or money. But here's the truth: pivoting is not failure, it's actually refinement. It's your spirit that's telling you it's time for a different route, for a different move. And you don't need anyone's permission to follow that nudge. I want to take you back to when I pivoted. I know I was that regional supervisor, had met through many locations and many of these stores to get where I needed to be. I had the resume, I had the background, and on paper, the job and everything looked perfect. I had influence, authority, at a seat at the big boys table. But over time, just something didn't feel right. It just wasn't energized anymore. I didn't see myself continue to progress forward. Felt like I wasn't growing. I felt like I was, how about this? It's not that I wasn't growing. I felt like I was moving in a direction that just wasn't me. Oftentimes felt at the end of the day, or maybe when I left meetings, corporate meetings, felt drained, didn't feel inspired. I found myself oftentimes questioning things that I was often confident about. I was really reflecting and thinking about, was something wrong with me? But still, I resisted that idea of leaving and pivoting. Why? Because I didn't want to look like I failed. I can tell you, I was concerned about what people would say. Would they think I'm crazy? What if this is as good as it gets, and I'm the one that has the problem? What if I regret walking away? But the real question was this: what if staying was costing me more than leaving ever could? Now, I must admit, I wish I could tell you guys that I made this 2 feet, jumped in the deep end of the pool, but the organization actually was going through a reshift, a reorganization, that they were, changing roles. And you know what? That was the catalyst I need to make the choice. I wanted to take the destiny back in my hands and make the choice. And I wanted to choose the pivot, where I would land, what I would do. And guess what? Yes, it was hard. There was fear, there was grief, there was uncertainty. And guess what? People thought I was crazy. But you know what I had? I had peace, because I knew I wasn't running away from something. I was just realigning. And on the other side of that pivot, I can tell you, you will always have new opportunities, new clarity, new life. Pivoting didn't mean I failed, it meant that I was growing. Now, I also want to share with you another story of pivoting that I actually wrote about in my book. about someone who looked like they had it all together. Someone I was working with had a steady job in corporate finance. They had routine, respect. On the outside, all measures of success. But on the weekends, they disappeared from the world that was so familiar to them and they retreated to a small home studio filled with lights, silence, and that shutter sound of their camera. Photography wasn't just a creative outlet for them, it was a space where they actually came alive. It was clarity, it was their calling. Years passed, and the gap for what they did for work and what they loved grew wider and wider. And unexpectedly, they were found. Some online portfolio that they had created was found by an art curator, and they had a chance to meet and feature them in an exhibit. Now, it should have been an easy yes to do what they had always dreamed of, but instead it brought everything to the surface. Could they keep living this life of this split of, corporate during the week and enjoyment and passion on the weekends? One foot in security and the other one in passion? So one day they finally made the leap. They left that corporate finance role. They chose uncertainty. They chose alignment. Was it hard? They told me, hell yeah, it was hard. Were there doubts and setbacks? Of course. But the joy returned, the peace returned, and they didn't just switch careers, they stepped into purpose. And in doing so, they found that home that they were always looking for. Now, I want to give you 5 truths about pivoting. Number one, pivoting creates new possibilities. When you're stuck in a pattern, a title, a role, it's hard to really imagine anything else. We become so attached to that identity, to that path, that we forget that we're allowed to reinvent ourselves. Pivoting opens your mind to what's possible beyond what's familiar. You're able to gain a fresh perspective, new creativity, and often new connections that would never existed if you stayed out. Like, for example, you leave a job and unexpectedly land a partnership or opportunity that's a better fit for you. That possibility didn't exist inside the box that you had currently outgrown, but you had to make that move to make it happen. I want you to ask, what am I no longer curious or excited about? And what new chapters or directions that are actually calling me? Number two, success is redefinable, and it has to be. One of the biggest reasons we resist pivoting is because we're still chasing an outdated definition of success, one that we adopted ages ago at a different stage of life. You know how different you are just a few months ago than you are today? Success at one stage might look like promotions and titles and public recognition, but in a new season, it might mean freedom, health, peace, purpose. How about just picking up the kids, being able to cook dinner, right? But when you pivot, you give yourself the power to reframe success around who you're becoming and not just who you used to be. You should ask yourself, what does success look like in this season? And am I brave enough to define it for myself? Number three, pivoting doesn't mean starting over, it means stepping forward with experience. When we fear that pivoting means starting from scratch, we forget that we're coming to the table with skills and lessons and wisdom and the grit that brought us to that moment. You're not starting over, you're stepping up. You can have that all of your experience are actually transferable, whether it was leadership or the resilience or the problem solving, communication or emotional intelligence. You're able to pivot with the blessings and learnings from the past into your new environment. So a pivot just means that you're taking those tools and applying them in a new way. Maybe one that finally fits your values, lifestyles, and calling. Ask yourself, what strengths am I bringing with me that I didn't even have the last time I started something new? Number four, growth requires letting go, and even the good things. Now, here's the truth that no one tells you. Mm, Most people don't walk away from the bad stuff. They also walk away from things that are still good, but just no longer aligned. You can be grateful for what that season gave you, but you still can outgrow it. Letting go is not betrayal, it's actually an act of maturity. It says, I honor what that season and experience gave me, but I refuse to continue to settle. So ask yourself, what am I holding on to out of comfort and not my calling? And lastly, number five, pivoting requires courage, not certainty. So many people wait until they have the whole map laid out. They do all of the Googles. They do all of the research. They're joining on the interwebs and they're trying to plan every step of the way and what could happen in every contingency. But the most powerful pivots rarely come with guarantees. They come with a knowing, a nudge, a stirring. Like you'll never have perfect clarity, but what you can have is the courage to move with intention. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's the decision to act despite it. So ask yourself, what small, courageous steps can I take today, even without having all the answers? Wow, man, it's a lot. But let's slow it down a little bit. And maybe if you're not ready for all of that, let's ask a real question. Where are you being called to pivot? And just know that pivots don't have to always be life altering. They can be in certain areas of your life. Is it at work? Or is it with a role that you've outgrown in a friend group? A path that once made sense, now that you've moved a couple of steps ahead, now feels heavy and not right or aligned? What's stopping you from exploring just the feelings and the nudging that is going on inside of you? So this week, give yourself permission to imagine something different. Now, sometimes the pivot is just a new way of doing things. I don't want you to rush it. I don't want you to force it. What I just want you to do is explore it. Journal, reflect, meditate, pray, get quiet, and ask what would alignment look like for me right now? Because sometimes the most powerful things you can do is pivot. Now, as we kind of come to a close, I want to give you two things. Now, let's be honest. Pivoting is terrifying, not just because what you might lose, but because of who you might disappoint. Maybe it be your parents, your friends think you're overreacting. Maybe your boss thinks you're wasting your potential, but you're not obligated to stay in alignment with a version of you that no longer exists, and especially the ones that other people know you for. Pivoting feels scary because we're wrapped up in the identity around an old plan, around a title, around a relationship, around a label. Sometimes pivoting feels scary because we believe other people know us for certain things and we feel locked in that because that becomes a part of our identity. But sometimes your growth requires you to outgrow the story that you told yourself ages ago. So, yes, fear will be there, but it doesn't get to drive the car. Now, if today's message spoke to you, obviously I would love for you to subscribe, share this message with someone who may need a little courage to move forward. Um, and, just want to leave you with this. Pivoting isn't a step back, it's a step forward in a direction of who you're becoming. So trust the nudge, honor the shift, let's move boldly. And one more thing, one more layer I want to speak to. Your pivot might be pivotal to your legacy. When you pivot, you're not just making a career move, a change of direction, or a new thought process. You're actually making a life move. You're modeling for your kids, your community, your circle, the people that are looking up to you, that courage is more important than comfort, that clarity matters more than approval, and that listening to your inner truth is worth it. This matters, not just for you, but for the people that are watching you. So pivot, not just for your peace, but for your purpose. And as always, guys, love you much.